Hi guys, so for today's video, I'll be covering on the upcoming launches in the RCR region for 2025 and also 2026. In this video, you can kind of see how the demand and supply will also affect the resale market, even just from the new launch market standpoint. And also some of my clients, they are in the RCR region, they are not sure whether to make a move, whether to sell this year or sell next year. I'm quite sure this video can also highlight some important points and when is a better time for you guys to sell. So stay tuned. Okay, before I start the video, for Nava Grove, right, recently the MOE website, they just updated the 1 km radius. So previously it was only one block, and then now all the 3 blocks are within 1 km of Henry Park Primary School. So for those of you that is looking to buy a unit near this Henry Park Primary School, you can reach out to me via WhatsApp or you can scan the QR code. I'll be more than glad to do an analysis for you between Nava Grove, Pine Tree Hill, and also the resale nearby. Alright, looking forward to hear from you guys. Okay, so for the more recent news in the RCR region, first up we have the en bloc sale of Thomson View. So the Strata Titles Board actually stopped the en bloc sale. I think there has been quite a few objections and right now they are unable to resolve them. So STB's main role, right, is actually to make sure everyone has an equal opportunity and like there wasn't anything that was done unfair, especially to the owners that object to the en bloc sale. Yeah, so this is what we see similar to Trump Park that time when they were trying to en bloc. The en bloc also was paused for a moment. I do foresee Thomson View not being able to launch in 2026. Very likely it could drag until 2027 as well. So for those of you that are waiting for Thomson View to come up, unfortunately you still have to wait another 1.5 years or more. And next up, we have the land plots that is near Marymount, Caldecott, and a few other MRT stations, right? The government just declared them being ready for new homes. This actually will be in the next 10 to 15 years. So, I mean, I think right now we are in a very early phase, especially for all these land plots, but you already can see that the government has segmented the empty plots to be residential that is near the MRT stations. So these are the 7 plots mentioned in the newspaper article. They are either new plots of HDB or private condominiums. So the government hasn't released the exact information because I don't think they will want to announce it too soon. As of right now, these are what we can see based on the estimates. So for the first plot, we have the Upper Thomson Road plot. So there are 3 residential plots within 400 meters of Marymount MRT that is being prepared for housing. So the plots range from 12,000 square meters all the way up to 35,000 square meters. And the estimated new homes on each plot ranges between 200 to 1,700 units, and the plot ratio will also range from 1.8 to 3.9. Next up, we have Kallang Avenue area. There will be 2 plots over here within 500 meters of Kallang MRT that is also being prepared, and this is plot 1, plot 2. So the size they will range from 11,000 square meters to 23,500 square meters, and the estimated number of new homes we are looking at is 1,100 to 1,500 units. Plot ratio is 2.8 to 3.5. Okay, so next up we have the Dover Road plot. So this one, right, is quite unique because the first story will be zoned as commercial. Then this is within 400 meters of One North MRT station. So this one, the size estimate is about 13,500 square meters. Estimate new homes about 400 plus to 600 plus. Plot ratio of 4.2. The next one we have is at Cross Street. So this one also, first story will be like commercial amenities, then after that the rest will be housing, and this is right beside the Lok Ayer MRT station. Size will be about 2,000 square meters. Estimated new homes about 200 units, and then plot ratio of 6.2. Next up we have Toa Payoh Rise. So this plot is right beside Caldecott MRT station. So over here, this very big plot, and commercial amenities will also be available on the first floor. So you can see the government, they're slowly trying to make all the first floor, right, to be commercial amenities so that most of the residents, they don't really have to leave their compound in the housing estate to go and buy their groceries and maybe get their haircuts. All these, they are all available just downstairs. And this one is quite a big plot. This one will be 78,500 square meters. Estimated number of new homes will be between 2,800 to 4,200 units. Plot ratio of 4.7 estimate. Upper Changi Road East. So there will be 2 plots which is near Upper Changi Station, and this one will be 33,000 square meters and 42,000 square meters respectively. New homes will be between 1,250 to 2,000 new homes. Plot ratio of 2.1. Okay, last but not least, we have the Woodlands Drive 17, and then this one will be quite near the recent launch that is Norwood Grand. So this one will be 27,500 square meters, estimated new homes between 400 to 700 units, and the plot ratio will be 2.1. So do take note, even though now the newspaper, they have already announced all these plots being prepared for residential use, right? In the end, the URA master plan, it could take 5, 10, 8, or even 15 years for all this land to be officially launched. So for those of you that maybe see this newspaper article and they are like thinking, hey, I'm interested in this area, might as well I just wait for these plots. Do bear in mind that they could take longer than expected. Okay, so just to highlight where is the RCR region in case for those of you that are not very familiar, they are basically District 3, 4, 2, 7, 8, 12, 13, 14, 15. So those are the ones in the lime green color. The rest are either OCR region in the blue color and the core central region, which is in the yellow color. Okay, so for those of you that remember this screenshot that I did for the new launch OCR and how it impacts the overall market, right? Right now, this is the updated screenshot. So you can see over here, right, I have the difference in the change based on the available new launch supply from that time the OCR video was recorded. Overall, whole Singapore, we have an increase of 582 units in the overall new launch supply. And the OCR region, we have 80 units increased. And surprisingly, for CCR, we actually had 101 unit lesser than the previous video. So means the take-up rate for the CCR was actually quite strong and certainly more than the supply lah. Now the RCR region had the most increase of up to 603 units. So you can see over here, OCR region 1240 units, CCR 770, and then RCR we have 2353 units. So these are the upcoming CCR launches for this year. We have Upper House at Orchard Boulevard 301 units, W Residences Marina View 683 units, Holland Drive GLS should be 666 units, River Green at Rio Valley area 524 units, Robertson Opus 348 units, Newport Residences 246. So just based on this plus the current supply we have right now of 770, total supply in the CCR region for this year we are looking at should be around 3,538. Of course, this will also depend on the take-up rate after the launch, but as of right now, we will be looking at about 3,000 plus units entering the CCR market for the remainder of 2025. Next up, we have the upcoming RCR launches for this year. So the next one we have is Linden Woods 345 units, Arena East Residence 107 units, Margaret Drive 460, Zion Road Parcel A 740, Promenade Peak 610. So this brings a total of 2262, and then you add the 2353 current supply, right? Total supply in the RCR region, we have a total of 4615. Okay, last but not least, we have the upcoming OCR launches for the remaining of 2025. So Canberra Crescent 375 units, The Sand 347 units, Springleaf Residence 941, Faber Walk 399 units, Tampines Street 94 585 units. So this brings the current total to be 2647 units and current supply is 1240. So we'll be looking at about 3887 in terms of the total OCR supply for the remaining 2025. I think in my previous OCR video, the number was much lower because back then the developer also cannot confirm whether they'll be launching this year or is it next year. So as of right now, the current confirmation for all these plots, they'll be launching for the remainder of 2025. So do stay tuned, and for those of you that are looking forward to these couple of launches in the CCR, OCR or RCR region, you can feel free to reach out to me. Okay, so just now we were covering on the supply side. So right now, let's take a look at the demand side for the RCR new launch take-up rate. So you can see we will take reference from 2022 onwards because I think any year before the COVID times was a bit unusual. So as of right now, will be a more accurate gauge in the past 3 years. So look at 2022, take-up rate was 2,655. 2023, 2,900 units. 2024, 2665, and this year 2025, looking at May period, 1005 units taken up. So if we judge based on the same pacing, we should be about another 1500 units left for the market to absorb for the RCR new launch. I mean, you can kind of argue, these past 3 years, maybe there hasn't been a lot of RCR new launches, but from my perspective, right, more or less the demand for the amount of buyers available to buy RCR new launches, it shouldn't steer too far off because there isn't a lot of policy changes in terms of like the TDSR or the interest rates. So I would expect the demand should be around the same in the high 2000s range, maybe hit 3000 if there is a lot of RCR launches. But other than that, I don't expect it to go back to like the pre-2021 phase. So now let's take a closer look, right, for the RCR new launch take-up rate for all the unit types versus 3 bedrooms. The gradient is kind of the same, but the main thing to highlight is you can see for 2023 to 2025, right, actually the gradient has become less steep because back then in 2021 there was a supply shortage, so that's why the entire market went up a lot and the demand was a lot higher back then. And today, fast forward to 2023 and 2025 timing, the demand is not as desperate as 2021 time period. So that's why you can see the prices is still going up, but it's no longer as steep as back then. Okay, so now we take a closer look, right, at the volume for the 3 bedrooms RCR new launch take-up rate. So you can see in 2022, we have 903 units. 2023, 953, 2024, 955. So right now we are looking at May period, 387 3 bedrooms already sold. So I don't expect this number that is going to deviate too far from this. So for the remainder of 2025, we should be expecting another probably 600 plus buyers for the RCR 3 bedders. Other than that, I don't expect a huge increase. So this will kind of show you the difference between the upcoming supply versus how many more can be absorbed in the demand side. Okay, then now we look at the RCR new launch 3 bedrooms versus the resale 3 bedrooms, right, in terms of volume and price gap. Yellow color will be the RCR resale 3 bedroom for yellow. Pink color will be RCR new launch 3 bedroom, and then the blue color will be the RCR new launch for all the bedroom types. For 2021 all the way to 2025, right, what I want you to take note is the price gap for the RCR resale 3 bedroom versus the RCR new launch 3 bedroom. Okay, so for 2021, the price gap between the new launch 3 bedder versus the resale 3 bedder, we are looking at 30%. And then fast forward to 2022, we are looking at is 29%. 2023, 31%. 2024, 29%. 2025, 29%. So actually, the price gap, right, for the new launch and the resale remain constant at 30%. That's why when you see the new launch, even for the RCR market, right, you can still see the take-up rate being very strong, especially for the new launches in very mature estate or typically the popular areas that Singaporeans can accept. And why the take-up rate is still so strong even when the new launches for the RCR is even hitting $3,000 per square feet is because the resale prices actually are also moving up. And for those of you that's in the market now looking for RCR newly TOP projects, you already know there are not many units on sale, so the supply is very low for all these newly TOP projects, and at the same time they are not cheap at all. So right now, buyers, if they cannot find the brand new TOP projects, right, very likely they just top up a little bit more, they will just go for the new launch project. If not, they will have to settle for something slightly older, maybe in the 5 to 10 year range for the resale market. Okay, so the second part I want to highlight is the volume for the resale RCR 3 bedrooms. So in 2022, the number of RCR resale 3 bedroom sold was 1,300 plus. 2023, 1,200 units. 2024, 1,400 units. And for this year up to May data, 2025, we have about 500 units already sold. So when you look at the historical data, right, we should be expecting the units sold by end of this year to be in the 1,300 range. So I would expect for the resale market to be able to absorb another 800 plus units only. Anything more, right, it will be requiring a significant interest rate drop or maybe a huge policy change on the government side. So I do have some clients that is worried about the new launch for RCR pricing being too high. Actually, if you take a look even at the resale market, right, they are really not cheap anymore. And then I think in the end, the gap has always been remaining about 30% between the new launch and also the resale overall market. So to be honest, if the gap has remained constant for 30% for the past 5 years, right, I wouldn't think the new launch is like absurdly priced, simply because the resale market has also moved up as well. So I think in the end, if you compare apple to apple, it's really at a constant gap. You are not seeing a price that is much different even if we trace back to 2021 time period. So like I mentioned just now, for 2025, the total number of transactions, we are looking at about 900 plus units for the RCR. So this one will include resale and new launch. And then the RCR market will have to absorb another 1,005 combining from resale and new launch. So I really don't expect this number to increase that much for 2025. And on top of that, you can see for 2025, there's going to be a lot more new launches coming up. So this will definitely present an oversupply situation, at least for the next 2 quarters for the RCR region. I think this will kind of even out by itself maybe in the middle of 2026 onwards. So at least this is what I see from a supply and demand perspective. Okay, so next up, I want to highlight this interesting data point is the narrowing gap, right, between the RCR and the CCR new launches. So as you can see from 2022 all the way to this year, 2025, actually we have the most narrow gap in the last 10 years for the new launches between RCR and CCR. And today, 2025, we're only looking at a 5% gap. So this means that the RCR prices, right, already moved up quite significantly, especially in the last 3 years. And you can see in 2022, the gap between RCR and CCR was 19%. 2023, we are looking at a 15% gap. 2024, 15%. And today, right, we are only looking at a small 5% gap. So this one really depends on how you look at it. For me, when I talk to a few clients, they actually don't mind to top up the 5% premium to opt into a CCR region, considering they have the budget to do so. So of course, I cannot just cast a blanket statement that the entire CCR market is worth buying. I'm just saying that for certain regions, if you guys are familiar, like for example, we compare between Orchard Road area versus River Valley area or Bukit Timah, I think those are all very different areas that appeal to different groups of buyers. You already know for some areas like let's say River Valley, right, they are typically having more local demand. And also if you look at 2023, actually they had a cooling measure for APSD for foreigners and increased the APSD for 30 to 60%. And this blue color one represents the CCR volume for each year. So you can see in 2023, we have about 1,300 units being transacted. 2024 mostly is local demand already, and we are looking at 377 units. 2025 we have 217 units already. So right now we are at May period, and you can see based on the previous few slides, majority of the new launches for the CCR region are coming up in the second half of this year. So it'll be quite interesting to see, right, what is the pricing they are launching at, and also how much demand will be actually driven from the RCR region to the CCR region, especially for the local side. Because as of right now, the data I have, the buyers in the CCR region from foreigners actually dropped to about 1% only. So they actually form a very, very small percentage of the buyers in today's market. And this is the year that I can say, this year, based on the PSF the CCR is launching at, if the local demand cannot push up the volume, right, then I would say CCR really lost its appeal already. So it'll be quite interesting to see how much the developers are going to be launching the CCR properties at, and also whether the local market, right, can absorb majority of these CCR launches. And of course, there's a chance moving forward, maybe 2026, 2027, right, maybe RCR prices can be higher than CCR one. That is definitely possible. But right now, if we extrapolate forward, right, very likely I think this gap will still be around there. I don't foresee CCR for certain regions being lower than the RCR regions. Like for example, like I mentioned just now, River Valley is still very sought after amongst the local Singaporeans. Let's say you compare the Ori versus to River Valley area, would you be paying the same PSF? Very likely the developer will price it slightly higher than, let's say, a Toa Payoh plot. Okay, so now we just take a deeper look into the new launch RCR supply for the 3 beders. Okay, so you can see over here for the current RCR 3-bedroom new launch supply, we only have about 751 units. And then coming up, if we include all the launches over here, and then we take about 30% to be 3 beders, we are looking at about 705 additional units introduced to the market. So when you add the current post-launch, total new launch supply we have for this year about 1004 range. So this is the same chart as just now I mentioned, and right now I just want to go straight to the point. Overall, the RCR 3-bedroom markets, right, still need to absorb another 1,500 units in the resale and the new launch for 2025. And then if we just based on just now estimate for the new launch supply, we have about 1,400 units. And then the resale market still need to absorb another 600 units based on the demand. We will have an estimated excess of 500 plus 3-bedroom units for 2025 in the RCR region. So that's why just now I mentioned, I still foresee this oversupply situation for the RCR region, and this one will typically resolve in mid-2026. This is my own estimate lah. So when you look at this demand and supply right now, right, I would say for buyers, this is definitely the opportunity to look out for up to 2026. In terms of the higher supply situation. For sellers, right, I would definitely recommend if you can wait a little bit longer, you should wait until next year, because when I look at the supply situation here, very likely you have to compete with the new launch market. So if the new launch, let's say for the RCR region, maybe they launch at $2,600 per square feet lah. This is just an estimate. If they launch at 2006, today, if your project you're in the RCR region, you want to sell 2,000 plus square feet, right? Very likely the buyers, they will compare, because if let's say it's the same 3 beders, both maybe in the $2 million, $2.5 million range, then in their minds, they'll be thinking, maybe I just top up a little bit more, I can get a brand new flat. Would I still want to consider maybe 10 years old resale RCR property? So these are the challenges that I would say some of the RCR resale market owners face in today's market, simply because there is quite a few new launches, and for the RCR resale market, right, they are no longer that cheap anymore. So that's why buyers, they are considering between the resale and the new launch market. Okay, so right now we take a look at the current resale 3-bedroom supply. So my search criteria is the RCR region in the past 12 months, 3 bedrooms and anything TOP up to 2025. So this one will exclude all the new launches. This has a total of 1,339 transactions for the 3 beders in the past 1 year. Do bear in mind, this is the past 12 months, not from 2025 all the way to mid-2025, okay? And right now, the resale listings in the market, right, we have 2,123 listings. So maybe we can just minus off a 10% duplicate. We'll be looking at about 1,900 listings in the market. And this already presents about a 600 plus excess resale listings even in the resale market if you just based on the take-up rate for the past 12 months. When you're combining on the excess resale supply and also an excess new launch supply, I would think in the RCR market, especially for the 3 bedrooms, there will be quite a good opportunity for buyers, especially in this next 12 months window. So this one is just purely based on demand and supply. Of course, different areas will have different demand and supply based on how much available units are on sale in the resale market over there. I'm not saying this will apply to every district, but overall you can see what is happening in the RCR as a whole. And today, if you are a buyer looking at the private market and maybe you're not sure whether you should be looking at which district for a certain bedroom type, feel free to let me know, because right now we have this app, right, that can help us shortlist very fast for the units. And also using this data, right, I can easily show you which areas has a higher volume and also which areas has higher demand compared to the supply when compared to the whole RCR region. So do feel free to reach out to me via WhatsApp 84849302. Looking forward to hear from you guys. Okay, so next up we have the upcoming new launch or the land bids for the condominium side for 2026. So very likely this year, whatever RCR plots that is launching for sale, very likely you'll see them being launched next year, 2026. So for Media Circle Parcel A, it was awarded And then Media Circle Parcel B, RCR, plot ratio of 4.3. The tender closed with no bidders. Okay, so this one is near the current Bloomsbury Residences, which is over here, and there was no bidders. So why was there no bids for Media Circle Parcel B? My own guess lah, okay. I think developers, they are watching at the take-up rate for Bloomsbury Residences. So judging from the launch day sales, maybe the developers were not as confident in bidding for this particular plot, seeing the take-up rate lah. And at the same time, this particular plot, they will also launch quite close to the tariff that period, so maybe developers were also concerned about adding on to their land bank when they want to just clear off their current inventory, especially during uncertain times. Okay, so the next two plots, we are looking at Dorset Road, RCR region, and then this one will be open for tender in June 2025. And then last but not least, we have Tolbanga Road over here, plot ratio of 4.7, and then it is looking at June 2025 to be launched as well. So very likely, we will see these three plots for 2026. In summary, for 2026 RCR launches, I really don't see much coming up, and I think this is a very good sign because this will be creating the artificial lower supply for the RCR region in 2026. Okay, so Media Circle Parcel A, 1037 PSF PPR. If we take the more recent launch that is kind of fully sold, Lentor Central, 982 PSF PPR, and then average of about 2002, right? So if we just use the same formula, very likely Media Circle Parcel A should be launching around 2003, 2004 PSF range. And then Thomson View, I think by right, it should be looking at 2026 to be launched, but right now it's being blocked. Very likely Q4 2026 or 2027 for the launch for Thomson View, provided they are able to resolve lah. Okay, and then Media Circle Parcel B not awarded. And then next up, we just now mentioned about the two plots, Dorset Road and Telok Blangah Roads. So this is 430 units and 740 units respectively. So for the three bidders, I'm estimating about 120 units and then 220 units respectively. So like I mentioned just now, the RCR high supply situation very likely will continue for 2025 into 2026 in the resale and new launch market. And 2026, right, will be low on the new supply for RCR, even adding in the two plots at Dorset at Telok Blangah. So we really need to see the take-up rate for the RCR plots for impact on for 2026 RCR prices. And like I mentioned just now, very likely this will balance out into mid-2026. Alright guys, so for those of you that like my video so far and I've added value to you, do feel free to leave a like and subscribe. And also if you like further analysis on the market and also other new launches, you can check out the other videos in my YouTube channel. I'm quite sure there will be valuable takeaways for them as well. And last but not least, for those of you that might be keen to find out maybe about Nava Grove, the changes, how it will affect them, and also for those of you that is looking for your current options in the RCR market, feel free to scan the QR code or reach out to me via WhatsApp at 8484-9302. I'll be looking forward to hear from you guys. Alright, bye!